All right, hi. My name is Paul, and today I'm going to be analyzing the movie Modern Times by Charlie Chaplin. So, this was my first silent film that I watched, and I was pretty surprised by it. It was really good and better than I expected. So, I want to start with the most important aspect I thought of the movie, which was the soundtrack. The movie wasn't a completely silent film like I thought it would have been, and I'm glad it wasn't because the sound of the movie was very important. The musical soundtrack accompanied the movie and represented what was going on with the movie. For example, in the beginning, there was upbeat, clanky music to symbolize the tramp working in the factory and symbolizing the hard, fast pace of being a factory worker. And the soundtrack also provides transitions into different scenes and provides like the mood for the movie. Like in one of the scenes when Charlie was getting robbed in the department, there's suspenseful music being played and it makes the movie come alive. So without the musical soundtrack, the movie would have been dull and pretty boring. An interesting part I noticed in the movie was that there was some dialogue in the beginning, like when the factory owner spoke on the monitors. Um, but Charlie Chaplin didn't speak at all, except in the scene where he improvised. But that was just gibberish. So I think maybe that was a message that maybe he thought silent films would have been better received by the audience, and maybe it would reach a larger audience or something. Yeah, or maybe the style of pantomime and silent acting was just better than dialogue. Um, so next, I'm gonna analyze the meaning of the story, and there was a couple of messages that I interpreted from the movie. First, I thought there was a message against industrialization and automation. This movie was made around the Industrial Revolution, and I think it was a message against the negative parts and aspects of industrialization and how the workers were dehumanized to be machine-like or overworked to be more efficient. For example, when Charlie goes to the bathroom to take a little smoke break, the monitor turns on and the owner yells at him to get back to work. And then another example is when Charlie Chaplin becomes the guinea pig for this new feeding machine in order to save time on worker lunch breaks. And I thought that was pretty ridiculous that they would try to have a machine to just feed the workers to make them eat quicker and then make them go back to work. And then another thing I noticed was when the workers were fighting Charlie, and he would turn on the factory assembly line in order for the workers to stop chasing after him and continue working on the factory line. So they showed that the workers were dehumanized and just conditioned to be machine-like. They would just work when the assembly line was on. And I think this made Charlie go into a nervous breakdown because he couldn't stand the dullness of the factory life and the machine like working, the machine like work. And next, another message I noticed throughout the movie was optimism. Charlie was always optimistic, he was happy go lucky. When he was in prison, locked up in prison, he was happy because he was in a cell, in his comfortable cell, and he was also drugged, which was pretty funny. And this movie was made around the Great Depression, which is when people were unemployed and hungry, and the actors in this movie depicted this, such as Big Bill and Ellen. For example, they steal in order to eat food. And even though Charlie's unemployed and runs from the law, he is always optimistic about it. And he tells Ellen that they will make it somehow. And in the final scene, him and Ellen walk down a road towards an uncertain but hopeful future. Finally, I'm going to be analyzing the characters of this movie. So I'm going to start off with Charlie Chaplin and what his character portrayed or represented. I thought his character represented a social commentary on what was going on at the time. It was a satire of the capitalist system that was in place during that time and how the factory owner, which was representing a rich capitalist, was overworking and oppressing the factory workers to make them more efficient and machine like in order to make more money. And then next, I thought Ellen was the gammon, was represented the people during that time. The people of the Great Depression were hungry, they were unemployed, and they were pessimistic of the future. But with Charlie Chaplin, he was more optimistic of it. He helped her become more optimistic of what was to come. So I think that even though it criticizes the industrialization and capitalist system, he also is optimistic about the future and what's to come.